Thank you for viewing this recorded Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company webinar. Should you have any questions regarding this presentation, please feel free to contact Reliable Technical Services at 800-557-2726 or email us at techserve@reliablesprinkler.com. For upcoming webcasts and an archive of past webcasts, please visit reliablesprinkler.com/webcasts. Once again, thank you and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you all for attending our presentation today. This is our webinar on special sprinklers. So to start, let's just tell you what a special sprinkler is. From a manufacturer's standpoint, a special sprinkler can really fall into two categories. One could actually be just a regular sprinkler that gets marketed as a special sprinkler. And the second is much more complicated. It's a sprinkler that we go to a laboratory that tries to solve a problem, fire problem, and create a brand new product that did not exist before. It doesn't really fall into the outlines of NFPA or FM or even UL listing criteria. So how can we go about doing that? Well, NFPA 13 actually provides us some guidance on how to create special sprinklers. And basically, if you opened up a copy of NFPA 13, it's going to vary upon which edition you look at, but they're going to tell you need to really solve 7 problems before you can bring these products to market. First one is that you basically need some fire testing related to the intended hazard. Focus on distribution of the spray pattern with respect to the wetting of floors and walls, and distribution of the spray pattern with respect to obstructions. Evaluation of the thermal sensitivity of the sprinkler. We got to know if it's going to become a quick response sprinkler or standard response sprinkler. Performance under horizontal or slope ceilings. The area of design. We make a new sprinkler, we got to tell you how to calculate that. And then the allowable clearance to ceiling. So where do we position that sprinkler with respect to something like a ceiling that might be able to collect heat and activate the sprinkler? So if you can go through all 7 of those criteria, basically create a program at one of our listing laboratories, that's going to enable us to bring a product to market that would fall into this category of a special sprinkler. First sprinkler we'll focus on today, there's multiple models of it. It's actually our WP series window sprinklers. Now, a window sprinkler is a product that is UL listed for the protection of fixed glazing. What we do with this product is that we take it to the laboratory and we try and evaluate it to make sure that it can withstand fire conditions for a certain time duration. We focused on up to 2 hours because this is meant to create a situation where you can use a sprinkler instead of building a fire-rated wall for up to those 2 hours. The sprinkler has really only been evaluated for 3 types of glazed materials. So we've got heat strength and tempered, and then your UL listed fire protection rated glazing materials. Full details of the product are found in Bulletin 181. Now, we have several models in our product lineup. WP56 is a glass bulb version. WP56L is our link version. And we have the stainless steel version, the only one available on the market. Temperature ratings for intermediate and ordinary applications. We also have some high pressure models for our regular WP56 and 56L. So finishes are also important. We want these sprinklers to be able to blend in with their surroundings next to the windows. So we offer just a full gamut of what we can with our metallic fixed frame sprinklers. Now, the idea of a window sprinkler really gives you the opportunity to use glass in construction, but the sprinklers become an eyesore themselves. So one thing that really sets this product category apart is the idea of having a window sprinkler that can actually be concealed. For over 20 plus years, only exposed fixed frame window sprinklers were available, and the WP56 looks to solve that problem with a concealed version. So it goes to the same evaluations that we talked about for the fixed frame products, again, focusing on 2 hours and the same types of glazing material. But now we get this just new aesthetic that allows us to put the sprinkler in a concealed installation. The product, it uses what we call our G5 cover plate, standard cover plate that we use on all of our pendant concealed sprinklers. It offers 3/4 inch of adjustment with this model. And again, another nice thing is the high pressure rating for the product. Now, these products exist because when you try and think about using a sprinkler to protect a window, standard spray sprinklers, they create what we often refer to as an umbrella shape pattern, and they're really good at wetting floors and walls. And that right here is the problem. We need to wet the entire surface of the glazing material. So a window sprinkler, especially listed window sprinkler, has a spray pattern that's directional, it's high, and it's wide. And if it's installed correctly and does its job, it will take that water, spray it across the top of the glazing material, and then you'll be able to get a cascading sheet of water that covers the entire surface area of this glass. So that allows us to get that equivalency to the 2-hour rating. If there's any dry spot in that glass, that allows the smoke and heat from a fire to heat that glazing material, and then you get into a situation with thermal shock with the cool water, and it will end up causing a crack and a failure in that glazing material. So it just can't stress how important it is to completely cover that window surface. We have a video here of our testing, and this is the area I want you to focus on. You can see as the sprinkler starts to discharge, there's actually some dry spots on this glazing material. And as it flows, that's going to slowly, completely fill in with water, and bring it that cascading sheet that goes over top of this, insulating that glazing material 100% from anything that's going on in that compartment. Now, this particular furnace that they use at UL, it slowly ramps up to about 1800 degrees. So if you have any dry spot, you're going to know it. You're going to end up failing that test. How do we apply these products? Well, we install them on both sides of glazing material when they're on the inside of a building, because we just can't tell what side of the glass the fire is going to start on. And it only works on the side that is in the same compartment as the fire. We can use these on windows that are part of an exterior assembly. We would install them on the inside to basically prevent a fire inside the building, breaching the window, and then potentially setting another structure or some other hazard into a fire state. Our recommendation for this type of installation is always to use an intermediate style version of this product. We do this as practice, as a requirement for sprinklers that go under skylights. It's not much different when you got to sprinkle right up against glass on the side of a building versus the top of a building. We can also use these on the exterior of a building. It's preferably to use this in a deluge system, and this would be for exposure protection. You have a structure or hazard outside of a building that could catch fire. It could breach a window and then enter into a building and create a fire situation. So these sprinklers would be used on the exterior, preferably in a deluge system to, wet those glass surfaces and prevent that fire from entering. Now, obviously, when we're talking about concealed, we can do all the same applications except the last one we just discussed. The deluge system is a problem for us, for everybody, because we have those cover plates that are on there. They would definitely be obstructing the spray pattern. So this particular application does not apply for the concealed version. When we talk about the installation, we identified, different types of glazing material and assemblies in buildings. Vertical mullions are one of our first challenges to describe here. This is when the glass is actually separated by metal frames. They do protrude from the frame surface, so it's going to prevent water from transiting across the glass. We have a 6-foot minimum with this product, and there is a 12-foot maximum, and you're able to space it 7 foot off of one of these mullions. Another way of assembling glass is actually using what's called a butt joint, where you put silicone in between the glass panels. The nice part about this is it's a smooth joint, and it lets that water transit right across it. And that means that that full distance in between sprinklers up to 12 feet can really probably be realized. And again, you get 7 foot off of the start point. Now, all the installations that we have evaluated at UL have always been for basically a sheet of glass. And, we have a way to separate it with the vertical mullions and the butt joints. But when we get to this point with the horizontal mullions, that becomes a bit of a problem. That water is not going to cascade any longer down that surface. So the intermediate horizontal mullion really interrupts that spray pattern. And now we have a situation where the top glass is protected by window sprinklers. The bottom glass is not going to be protected by the sprinklers on top. And if we want to look at using another set of window sprinklers, yeah, anything is, possible to set that up and install it, but it's not something that was really evaluated and tested. It needs to be thoroughly evaluated by the HJ. When we talk about installing it in a window surface area, we need to be concerned about what type of glass material it is. If we're looking at just a typical heat strengthened tempered glazing material, we could actually have a small fire occur like in a waste paper basket that could actually heat the glass, and by the time the sprinkler goes off, it could shatter the glass. So to get around that, we would have a recommendation: install a 36-inch minimum pony wall, and that would allow that more durable construction material to absorb the heat from a small fire and set the sprinkler off without superheating the glazing material. In all instances, there's no distance that matters from the floor to the ceiling when it comes to the height. Our biggest concern becomes the glaze panel itself. The furnace that we showed you in that video only went up to a 13-foot maximum exposed glazing height. If we take a look at the installation dimensions for this product, you'll notice that it does stick down below the frame. We set the sprinkler 4 to 12 inches off of the surface of the glass, and we set it 2 to 4 inches down below that frame. And that allows us to have, an easy path for that water to discharge, hit the glass, and then cascade down it. And again, there's no limitation for the deflector all the way up to the ceiling. So the installation with the regular fixed frame sprinkler, it's a bit of an eyesore. This is really the only solution that was around for 20 years, but when you can use a concealed sprinkler, you can see much more aesthetically pleasing. What you end up doing is setting the sprinkler a little bit further away from the glazing material, so you get 6 inches versus 12 inches, or 6 inches to 12 inches, and then we can actually get it to be flush with that frame, or even all the way 4 inches above it. So 0 to 4 inches from that frame, you can actually get that sprinkler installed. Once you get a sprinkler like this installed, you got to put a cover plate on it to finish out the installation. This is something where we really excel with different cover plates. So we have white and chrome as standard finishes, 8 different finishes that are metallic, and some different paint versions. And we always have the ability to custom paint any plate that you want to any color. Just provide us the manufacturer, the paint, and the color name and number. We'll go out and source that. But again, what sets us apart is this new process where we actually have printed concealed cover plates that are both UL listed and FM approved for the various sprinklers. So the process is approved by the listing agencies. The sprinkler itself has to hold the listing in order to truly be evaluated by both these laboratories. These concealed plates, they work on all of our pendant products and even our sidewall products. So not just window sprinklers. You got 2 different finishes on a ceiling. Happy to help you out with that. We'll try and match the finishes up so you can blend that in. I mentioned sidewalls before. Sidewalls get a little complicated because a lot of times we deal with wallpaper. So we have the ability to print that wallpaper pattern directly onto the plate. And if you take a look at the amount of sprinklers that we can offer these products on, we have a significant amount. All of our flat plate concealed products have these plates available. Big focus of the printed plate line was basically getting wood grain finishes, and we selected 12 wood grain finishes that are readily available anytime. Just call us up and order them, and you're in good shape. So why was a window sprinkler originally created? Basically, there was some architect engineering firms that really wanted to get creative and get away from buying fire-rated glazing, or just introduce glazing period into their fire-rated assemblies. And they reached out to manufacturers, and ultimately it was about 20 plus years ago, maybe 30 years ago almost at this point, that Central Sprinkler introduced the first version of this product. So are they referenced by NFPA 13? There was not for many years, but starting with the 2016 edition, we saw some addition to NFPA 13 and 13R that really doesn't require them, but it says if you're going to use them in a way that is the way that they're intended. So you'll find some guidance now in NFPA 13 on how to use these products correctly. But really the bigger question is, when are you allowed to use them? How can you use them as a way to get around building out of fire-rated materials, like just traditional wall materials or fire protection rated glazing. Well, that comes down to the IBC. Now, IBC gets a little tricky. If you read it, there's a section that states that fire resistance rating shall not be achieved with automatic sprinklers. So that just looks like right there, you completely disqualify the use of window sprinklers. But if you keep reading on, it talks about having the ability to use them if you apply sections 104.1 and 104.11. Now, 104.10 is the part that allows building officials to grant modifications on individual cases. So that opens up the door. And then 104.11 talks about you can really do this if you have solid research reports and tests. Okay, so what's a good version of that? Well, the best possible report that we can give you for this is one that's written by the ICC, the publisher of the IBC. So we have an evaluation report, 4700. It gets reissued every 2 years. Ours was reissued in November of 2023, and it focuses on many of our models, and it has some supplements for different versions of the building codes throughout the world. So definitely take a look at that document. It's available via a link on our website. It's also available in the ICC report, and that'll help you best apply this product in harmony with IBC, and then focus on what NFPA says, and you're going to be in good shape. So why would you want to choose the window sprinklers from Reliable? Well, we offer you the best spacing for the fixed frame models at 12 feet. We offer best spacing off the mullion at 7 feet. We have great flow rates of 15 gallons per minute per sprinkler, and we have the best pressure rating at 250 psi. We offer the industry's only fusible link model, if that's something that is of concern to you. We have the industry's only stainless steel model. When it comes to our concealed sprinklers, we offer spacing that goes all the way up to 10 feet for a product like this. We have spacing off of a mullion, 5.5 feet. Best flow rate per sprinkler at 20 gallons per minute. Cover plate that goes all the way up to 3/4 inches of adjustment. We have the best pressure rating for this product at 250 psi, and by far the most complete cover plate offering to blend this in with a ceiling. So, shifting gears, moving on to another sprinkler. We're going to talk about our concealed combustible spray sprinkler. It's the model KFR CCS. These types of sprinklers are meant to be used in combustible construction, primarily in between floors, in between spaces, in between the floors. This is listed at UL under 199. They investigate multiple types of construction materials and methods of building these floor assemblies to try and give you a good cross section to pick the different types of construction, and then also pairing it with the pipe material that you're probably going to be using. We have maximum coverage areas up to 16 by 16 with this product. We use a fast response solder link element, the only sprinkler of this type with a solder link element. When we think about installing these sprinklers in a space and then we cover them up forever, we feel that a more durable operating element like the concealed or like the fusible link is a better option. The neat focus, the focus of the sprinkler is really the neat spray pattern. It's really flat. We're not concerned about creating that umbrella shape again, because this is in between floor spaces that are very, very shallow. So it's important to get that flat spray pattern and project it out, especially when we want to get up to 16 by 16 feet of coverage area. So really, when you bring up our document for our technical bulletin, you're going to find several figures. They're have also been colorized to make it a little bit easier on you to use. But we've tried to really show you all the different testing that occurred and all the different scenarios. Now we know we don't capture every single thing that you encounter in the field, but we really got to come close to trying applying the sprinkler, with these figures, because that's really per the listing. So I just encourage you to take a look at all that and figure it all out. Now, if you've been using these sprinklers for years and you think you know everything about them, there was a change that was made recently to these sprinklers that applies to everybody. It's how do we protect vertical supplies when they go up to another floor to supply other sprinklers? We know that with CPVC pipe, we got to run it low in the space to try and keep it out where the smoke and heat collect and maybe degrade that pipe material. And we would always run sprigs to supply the sprinkler, and it would spray out and everything. But what happened when you went up to another floor? Well, the guidance now that you'll find on the bulletin says that if you have a vertical supply, your first option is make sure that that vertical supply is within 24 inches of a sprinkler that is already part of your layout. And the next thing is if you get further away than that, then you should transition to a more durable material such as steel pipe. And then once you get above the ceiling, you can remain in steel or transition to CPVC. Not an ideal way to approach the situation. Your third option, and this is pretty reasonable, you just take some half-inch wrap non-combustible insulation, wrap it around the vertical supply, duct tape it, zip tie it, whatever it might be, and provide an insulated barrier for that vertical riser. So that might end up being, what you end up doing more and more to try and make this vertical supply be protected by these sprinklers. So again, this is guidance on the documents now for these concealed combustible space sprinklers. If you haven't been using them or you haven't seen this or you haven't been applying it, just know that it's out there and keep that in mind for your projects. When we talk about why were, these concealed combustible space sprinklers even created, well, it all goes back to CPVC pipe. BlazeMaster was not allowed to be used in concealed combustible space construction. And they wanted to solve that problem. And the way that was done was by actually creating a brand new sprinkler, one that was proven to protect the space and then protect the piping material. So is this product referenced by NFPA 13? Yes. Basically, every single version since 2002 now not only references it, but actually requires the use of these sprinklers. And this goes back to the testing that was done to prove that CPVC would work with sprinklers. It basically proved that using regular sprinklers with steel pipe was not a good solution. And a change was made to NFPA 13 now requiring it. So the requirement is if the concealed combustible space is less than 36 inches in depth, you are going to need to use a sprinkler specifically listed for this application. Now, that 36 number there is actually the point where you can sort of get enough of that umbrella pattern from a standard spray sprinkler, and that will basically negate the requirement to use a special sprinkler. These sprinklers, however, have listings down to 60 inches. So that means you could actually continue to use them beyond the 36. And there is some benefits to using that, like using CPVC pipe, also having an extended coverage spray pattern versus that standard spray sprinkler that you'd use in that space. So with that being said, why would we want to choose our reliable sprinklers? Well, we have new wood truss and bar joist listings that are really, really great. They offer a maximum spacing of 16 by 16. The depth of the concealed combustible space can go down to 60 inches. We have no draft curtains required. We have the industry's best wet system hydraulics using 6 sprinklers on a calculation. You cannot improve upon that. We have a durable, fast response fusible link operating element, which we really believe is, truly the best way to approach this situation. And like I said, mentioned before, we have clear, concise technical literature using color figures, so making it very easy to review the document, identify your hazard and your situation, and apply the product and explain it easily to field and AHJ personnel. All right, attic sprinklers. Attic sprinklers are special sprinklers. They're UL listed. For our particular version, we have 4 models of this product. We have listed them all together at UL under the UL 199G document. They are listed to be used as a system. So there's really no mixing and matching. You pick a manufacturer when it comes to attic sprinklers, you use all of their sprinklers in combination to create a system. They have 212-degree operating elements that are fast response fusible links. And you can find out more information about them in Technical Bulletin 056. We have a test video here showing you these sprinklers. And basically, we light a fire down at the eave. It's the furthest point away from where the sprinkler's installed at the peak. And you're going to need for this fire to generate enough heat to get up here and then activate the sprinkler. And then the spray pattern, the very unique spray pattern from these products, is going to be able to project that water down towards there and control and contain the fire. So the video right now is in a fast forward mode. We're just trying to get you to the good parts here. as you can see, we're about 5 minutes into this test, and the fire is still relatively small, relatively contained. We don't have a sprinkler activation yet. We're going to hit that in just a few more seconds, but the channeling of the structure keeps the fire tight. The slope ceiling is pushing that fire and the heat towards the sprinkler. And now we have our first sprinkler activation at 5 minutes and 32 seconds. And you'll notice that there's no water being discharged at this point because we actually are attempting to get a listing for a dry system. And the laboratory is withholding the water for 60 seconds, and that's being indicated by the pie chart down there. Now, we are not fast forwarding this. Since that sprinkler is activated, you're watching everything in real time. And if you've ever heard somebody tell you that fire grows exponentially, you can truly see that in this 60 seconds. And we're only about 3/4 of the way in on this delay. And now we finally get our water. Once the sprinklers start discharging, they do a really good job of beating that fire back. And we're going to continue to flow this water. It's going to be about 30 minutes that this continues to flow, and it's going to push that fire back. It's going to wet everything down. It's important to note at the end of this test, they actually inspect that area where that fire occurred. And if you actually burn a hole in that roof area that's greater than 6 feet, you will fail that test. So even if you put the fire out and everything, if you have a hole greater than 6 square feet, you're going to fail the test. And it's important to point out that NFPA doesn't have any kind of requirement such as that in their document for attic sprinkler protection. So reliable attic sprinklers have several models, and we'll just hit them really quick. Single direction for us has been simplified. There's nothing else really out there as easy. We have a single sprinkler model that's meant to be installed with the frame arms perpendicular to the roof deck. That creates a 40-foot maximum span of coverage. We have dual direction sprinklers that has been maximized. The most popular sprinkler in this whole category is going to be your one that shoots in both directions. We have, of course, back-to-back sprinklers, dual direction sprinklers that go to 60 feet. But that's something we pushed the envelope on, and we crossed that 60-foot threshold and moved it all the way out to 66 feet with a 6-foot spacing at the peak. And we actually went even further than that. By compressing the spacing at the peak, we were able to push it to 70 feet. So 70 feet is 10 feet greater than anybody else out there. This type of sprinkler setup will enable you to eliminate sprinklers down at the eaves and save you significant time, labor, and money on your project. So the idea of protection at the eaves, though, does come into play with our sprinklers when you cross 70 feet. And for that, we have a sprinkler that we install down there for the GP56. And this total assembly here now with 3 lines can go all the way up to 100-foot maximum. It's just not possible with anybody else's product. They're going to cap out around 80, 84 feet, things like that. They have solutions for. So nice part about the GP56 too is that we push this product back from the eave further than most. That gives us the ability to give you more room to work, a 3-foot area there. Other sprinklers, much more compressed, pushed down towards the eave. So the hip coverage is important because we actually flattened it. Most coverage area for sprinklers that are used in hips are going to be measured along the ceiling. All of our attic sprinklers, including the hips, are measured with their coverage area along the floor. This coverage area being measured along the floor just means you get more out of your sprinkler. You're not wasting the coverage by using it up on a slope. In this instance here, you can see we get 15 foot of coverage with the 4 and 12 slope, and other sprinklers are going to give you a 11-foot coverage on the floor because the 12-foot of coverage is along the slope. So this sprinkler looks like it's 120 square feet of coverage normally, but you're using it on the slope. Ours is 150 square feet of coverage, and that's always on the floor. And of course, since that's the case, that means the product is its best in the installation with the lowest slope, when that slope increases, things get a little bit more restrictive. You go down to 10 foot. So that turns into 100 square foot per sprinkler on an 8 and 12 slope, and we're 150 with the AH56. So solid performance in the hip using these products for that. And one thing, the sprinter's been out for a while, and you always got to keep up with the data sheets. Everything changes every so often with manufacturers and their products. What we did just this past fall was raise the roof. Our maximum roof pitch for use with our products has been 8 and 12 since they came out. Well, we found a way to enhance some listings and get our listings up to 12 and 12 roof pitch. Now, this is not used everywhere in an attic, but an area that was often a pain point was something like a dormer or a hip. That created a situation where the roof pitch crossed the 8 and 12. So this is a great attic application here. You end up having a situation where that dormer ends up being 12 and 12, and that turns into a negative. But now with the new listings, that 12 and 12 can be used with AH sprinklers and various other products in the line to now be used. So check out your roof pitches, check out our technical bulletin, and we can help you out with our solutions. So again, attic sprinklers really came about because, again, CPVC wanted to be used in that type of space. So they worked with the licensee at the time, Central, come up with attic sprinklers. How do we, are attic sprinklers found inside of NFPA 13? No, you won't find a reference to attic sprinklers according to NFPA 13. But since really the introduction of attic sprinklers, there was a lot of assessment of using standard spray sprinklers in an attic. And in 2002, things changed quite dramatically for using standard spray in an attic. You get a smaller area of coverage per sprinkler now. The maximum space between the sprinklers had been limited. Mandated sprinklers to be installed at the peak can no longer 3 feet down. Sprinklers installed along the eave must maintain a minimum distance. You don't want them too close. That way the fire can bypass them. And then potentially higher operating pressure for sprinklers depending upon the spacing. If you cross 8 feet, then you end up having to increase the pressure, and that would make your system more demanding. So while NFPA 13 will not specify, require, or even really advise you to use specially listed window or attic sprinklers, they've incentivized you, and it probably is more than likely in your benefit to look at those products and use them when possible. All right. So next sprinkler to tell you about is our corridor pendant sprinklers. We call them the LT56 series. And the LT56 series are, again, special sprinklers. They're pendants that have a rectangular spray pattern that's basically 28 feet by 10 at its maximum. These come in fixed frame versions and also a concealed version to help give you the optimal aesthetics. And if you take a look at the spray pattern there, it's very narrow and it's very wide. So that gives you that ability to place this in a corridor. And the ability to space them 28 feet apart just allows you to skip a lot of sprinklers in a long run down a corridor. That's really the only acceptable way to install these products as well. It's just a long throw product that's meant to space 28 feet in between them at a maximum. So there's no rotating these 90 degrees and stacking them in a room, similar to the attic sprinkler concept. It's just this one way right down a hall. So the nice part about this too is that it helps us out with our hydraulics. When we think about corridors, NFPA has some special guidance to allow us to actually install sprinklers down a corridor and then run a calculation within that corridor. And when you use standard spray sprinklers, the guidance is 5 sprinklers. And when you transition over to extended coverage, because you want to try and eliminate some sprinklers, you would just do 75 linear feet in that corridor. That 75 linear feet is really just taking those 5 sprinklers and multiplying them by their maximum coverage area of 15. So how this works out in design is we lay them out And then when it comes time to hydraulically calculate, we can all type into our hydraulic programs that I got a sprinkler that's only going to cover about 150 square feet, press the calculation button, and those sprinklers are going to flow just the amount of water that's meant to be staying inside of that corridor. Like I said, you want to try and use less sprinklers, you would go to extended coverage. You move to extended coverage, the maximum you can get is 20 feet now. So you're gaining 5 feet on that standard spray sprinkler. But the downside to an extended coverage sprinkler is when you run your hydraulics, you have a square listed discharge pattern, and that has to be factored in your hydraulics. And that means a significant amount of water that is being wasted because it's hitting the walls and it's not able to go and cover the floor area beyond those walls in the hallway. If you take a look at an LT56 product, we can fit that same 75 linear feet. We can cover it with 3 versions of these products. And the spray pattern being so narrow means that when it comes time to hydraulically calculate, pretty much staying in line with what that hallway is going to have for the floor area, matching more like the standard spray. So you have the ability to save significantly on your number of sprinklers in a hallway. You also are not penalized hydraulically with this type of sprinkler. Why would these sprinklers even get created? Well, Reliable, over 20 years ago, introduced sidewall versions of these products, both wet and dry. And we have had tremendous customer reception for these types of products, and just thought it was logical to bring them over to a pendant form factor. So if we've had these products and they were considered extended coverage for sidewalls, why do we have to make special sprinklers for pendant products? Well, it really comes down to the fact that NFPA doesn't allow pendant extended coverage products to be made unless they have a rectangle or a square spray pattern, and the rectangular spray pattern didn't fit within the confines of NFPA 13, forcing us to create a special sprinkler with UL. All right, so next we're going to tell you about is our model F4 FR-NF MRI room sprinkler. This is a sprinkler that's listed as UL 199 as a standard spray automatic sprinkler. It went through additional testing through some ASTM standards to simulate a 6 Tesla field. That's about double what a typical MRI machine would generate. And the concern here is that MRIs have a magnetic field, and we need to make a sprinkler out of basically non-ferrous components, so the magnet doesn't impact the sprinkler and pull on it in unnecessary ways. The concealed sprinkler is obviously the most optimal aesthetic appearance possible, and you can find out more about it in Technical Bulletin 002. So we mentioned the magnetic resonance imaging machine. This basically typically is going to create a field within 3 Tesla, and those sprinklers have been evaluated up to 6 Tesla, so about double of what a traditional MRI machine would work with. So why were they created? This is another one that Reliable, heard from our customer base, heard from the healthcare community, that there was a concern about regular sprinkler technology in this space. They wanted to protect their machines. They wanted to protect it in a way that didn't create damage to the sprinkler system or potentially injure patients that were in the MRI. And that just set our engineers off onto the project of trying to take a existing sprinkler for us and then get as much of the ferrous components out of it and create that non-ferrous version of the product. So the MRI sprinklers referenced by NFPA 13, no, you won't find any real guidance on an MRI on what to do with it. This is really about opting for creating that product or for opting for using that product because it's just the right thing to do. It's a better thing. It goes along the same lines of, hey, you don't have to use a pre-action system in an MRI space, but a lot of times you do because you want to have a better premium sprinkler system and products because that machine is millions of dollars. So you will not find anything in NFPA 13 about that. But it's also important to note that this isn't really truly a special sprinkler. This is really marketing by Reliable. The product is made at UL, listed like a regular standard spray sprinkler, and that testing that was done with those Tesla fields, according to the ASTM standards, was just additional testing that we did to help us be able to market this product as a non-ferrous sprinkler. But you will not find anything from NFPA or UL or anybody about have to use ferrous, non-ferrous sprinkler, and also how to even really create one. All right, so next up, institutional sprinklers. We have the Reliable Model XL institutional sprinkler, UL listed as a standard spray sprinkler under UL 199. Institutional sprinklers are another version of a special sprinkler that really is about marketing. There's no listing or approval that will validate the tamper-resistant features that are found in this type of product. It's really about us creating a really good mousetrap and then providing it to our customers to be installed and used for that application. So some examples of places where you'd use institutional would be correctional, detention, and mental health. The occupants in those spaces are going to potentially hurt themselves. They're going to cause damage to the sprinkler system just to become a nuisance. So in order for this product to work the best way that we imagined it, it's about installing it and, restraining it. So we offer a retaining flange that allows you to sandwich the sprinkler in between a wall material or ceiling material and really secure it up against there. You want to try and do that because you don't want anybody to be able to grip onto the sprinkler, grip behind the sprinkler, or anything like that. And when it's installed correctly, really the only thing at that point that is protruding down or able to be attached to at all is the heat sensing element. And the heat sensing element has been designed by us to release when you suspend a load that exceeds 50 pounds when it's dropped from a 1-inch height. So install it correctly, secure it to the wall or the ceiling, and then you can have some confidence that it's going to be able to do its job and nobody can really suspend themselves from it, create a situation that they could commit suicide. And then also anything that is removed from the sprinkler is going to cause activation, and they can't take those parts and harm them. So this type of sprinkler was first created by Star Sprinkler, and I think it's pretty obvious, just a problem was identified where inmates were causing problems, and you had to try and build a better mousetrap to outsmart them and prevent them from damaging the sprinklers, and then also taking the components and then creating a situation where they could weaponize them and harm themselves or other individuals. Again, it's marketing. So NFPA 13 isn't going to say you have to use an institutional sprinkler. There's really no program that exists to validate them. So you're not going to find any guidance on that in NFPA 13 either. Moving on, we have our MBEC 14 metal building sprinkler. UL listed FM approved. The idea was that you had metal building construction, and they often had purlins, and it's difficult to attach your sprinkler piping to it. The purlins were lightweight. We had different things like purlin clamps that were expensive. Screw fasteners were difficult, oftentimes requiring nuts on the back side of them. So we wanted to try and solve this whole entire process by creating a brand new sprinkler. That would be the MBEC 14. It provided some extended coverage all the way out to about 175 feet, and allowed us to install it inside of these metal buildings. As you see here, we're trying to protect the metal building by attaching to the I-beams, and we can do some storage for a special listing for the product in there, all detailed in the technical bulletin. And here's a better example of that. It's a section through where that beam was at. One of the nice things about this product is that you have the ability to, from a single lift, maybe install 2 lines at once. So it could save you time by installing just a single 2 lines off a single lift. And then also you just don't have to deal with ever attaching to a purlin. And we have a little spray video here showing you how that works. So it's a sidewall spraying out that water. So Reliable was the company that introduced the metal building sprinkler and worked with UL and FM to bring it to market. There was, at the time, 20 years ago, a big push to make these metal purlin buildings, and it was just something that we thought we could have a solution for. And we worked with those listing laboratories to bring it to market, and it's available should you guys have a project that meets its requirements today. But again, you're not going to find anything in NFPA 13 talking about these types of sprinklers. They're just made by us for that application. The last sprinkler we want to tell you about today is our newest sprinkler. And this has to do with a problem that is becoming more and more relevant. It's the protection of lithium-ion cell formation areas. And for years, the concept and the thought process was that it cannot be done. Well, we think that using special sprinkler products and installation criteria based upon testing, it can be done. And what we did was we developed a sprinkler specifically for that. We call that the LB11. It's a UL listed product that was under a brand new document at UL called UL 199K. So it's very, very special and has specific application criteria. It's an 11K sprinkler with an intermediate temperature rating. And as you can see, it's meant to be installed as an in-rack sprinkler. This is brand new stuff, not really used ever in our industry, this idea of a sidewall sprinkler in a rack. And why would we create this product? Well, I mentioned before, it has to do with batteries, specifically solving the problem of lithium-ion batteries in a formation area. If we go to any of the laboratories, UL or FM, we run a test for storage. We have to pick the storage commodity to put in the racks. And they're all standardized. They look exactly like these examples that are showing up on your screen here. So if you run a test, pass it, that means that you get a listing for that hazard. And we know we've seen those hazards all throughout NFPA, all throughout FM. But the one thing that you just never see is a listing for batteries. So batteries are the challenge. There has been no standard commodity test that's been identified that we can go to UL, go to FM, pack the racks with, and then get a listing. So lithium-ion battery manufacturing process has many, many steps. Like, this isn't the cure-all sprinkler for everything out there. What we wanted to do is focus on really the last steps, which are referred to as formation and aging. This is where the cell is manufactured, and then you're trying to tell if you manufactured a perfectly good working cell. It has to be charged up, discharged, really just figuring out if it works. You don't want to take a bad cell and then put it into a battery pack for like an electrical vehicle that is, thousands of cells. Bad cells inside of a bigger product is not a good thing. Now, what that means is you end up needing to run a full test, and that's what we did. So we bought batteries. The batteries we bought were 18650s, nickel, cobalt, aluminum cathode, 3,500 milliwatt hours. And really what sets this apart, what makes this a difficult thing, and what people have perceived as a challenge that cannot be protected by sprinklers is the state of charge. So we charge them up to 100%. Batteries are really not that big of a problem if they don't have a charge. It's the more charge, the more volatile and dangerous they have. The storage configurations in non-reinforced polypropylene formation trays, 160 cells per tray. And the total amount that we used for our testing was 8,000. So we have a video here, and I'm going to try and tell you what's going to happen because it does have sound and I don't want to try and shout over it. But what we wanted to do was actually start a fire underneath of the batteries. And we wanted to set the batteries into a state of thermal runaway that also became cell-to-cell thermal runaway, meaning that thermal runaway is a chain reaction, or is a failure of the cell that starts a chain reaction that goes cell to cell. Once that cell-to-cell thermal runaway chain reaction occurred, we wanted our sprinklers to operate, and then we wanted to see how they performed. So let's give this a go here. Well, I don't know how that really went through on Teams. I hope you guys got to see it and experience it. I will tell you that it's one of the most impressive fire videos I've ever seen. You know, getting that first person perspective with the GoPro camera in the aisle. There is a version of this on our YouTube channel. So if it was having any kind of lag or skipping and you want to watch a better high quality version of it, please feel free to go check out our YouTube channel. So I know you're thinking that that's a pretty crazy fire and there must not be anything left in there due to all the explosions and everything. Well, this actually validated our sprinkler and our concept. We were able to start the thermal runaway, cell-to-cell propagation, and then through the process of our sprinkler wetting it, stop that. We only consumed about half of the cells located in the bottom of the rack. So it's a very exciting sprinkler product, and it's really the only solution that is out there based upon test data. And you know, until the laboratory partners have a way to identify some way to test lithium-ion batteries, this is really where we're at. We're just looking at private research. So how about in-rack horizontal sidewall sprinklers? Are they referenced by NFPA 13? And no, this is a brand new concept that Reliable's pioneering and working with you all on, and there's never been an application with one. It's important though, because NFPA 13, if you take a look at it, you will find batteries though as part of excluded from the scope of NFPA 13. It's in the annex material, but it does say that, you know, commodities listed in table A56 are outside the scope of NFPA 13 protection. So if you do have something going on with lithium-ion batteries, NFPA 13 is not going to be a document that provides you with a way to protect them. Really, there isn't anything out there. And our product, like I said, is not a silver bullet. It's really meant for those formation and aging areas when the batteries are 100%. So It's exciting, sprinkler. If you have some questions about it, feel free to reach out to technical services. We'll be happy to discuss with you the research and maybe your application and see if it's a good fit. So that really concludes our presentation for today. Just to recap, we covered 8 types of special sprinklers. 2 of those sprinklers are just pure marketing. We have our MRI sprinkler and institutional sprinkler that fall into that category. But 6 of them were true NFPA special sprinklers that have special applications. Some that you're very familiar with, like windows and attics and concealed combustible. And then others that are new and unique, like corridor pendants, metal building sprinklers, in-rack storage sidewall sprinklers, and even anything else that might come up down the line. Only one of those sprinklers, however, was actually required for you to be used according to NFPA standards, and that's going to be that concealed combustible space sprinkler. Everything else is really up to you as a engineering professional, sprinkler contractor, or HJ to allow or approve their use. So with that being said, we'll handle some questions if we got them.
Thank you, Brandon. Great job as always. And yes, we do have some questions.
I can only imagine. There's so much that to just cram all 8 of these sprinklers into an hour. There's got to be questions.
Well, surprisingly, not that many, because I think you covered everything and covered it well. But let's take the couple that we do have here. Going back to the combustible concealed space sprinklers and rising up to an upper level. The question is, does a single CPVC riser feeding a sidewall sprinkler on an upper level have to follow one of those protection options?
Yeah, this is not about the number of risers. It's about a riser that doesn't meet one of those 3 options. And it's one of the things where it's been many years, if you just follow along, NFPA used to make you have 2 separate systems, and then people started to run 2 separate systems and they couldn't have the CPVC for the upper system low enough in the space. And then NFPA allows you to combine them. And then we combined them for many years and everything was fine. But then you had AHJs that started to look at that and say, I don't understand how that could be protected. If I have 16 by 16 spacing and I put a riser in the middle of those 16 by 16, that's about 10 feet away from a sprinkler on a diagonal, and you have multiple trusses in the way, how could I ever get water on? So it's one of the things that was a very logical assumption for an AHJ to push back on. And as an industry, we don't have an appetite to solve it through testing. And this guidance is what was delivered. And we think it's fair and it's easy to do, no matter if it's one riser or multiple.
And as I understand it, all manufacturers are in agreement and have so documented, correct, Brandon?
Absolutely. That figure was created with the help of UL. All the manufacturers contributed, and all the manufacturers should have a similar version of that product guidance on there.
Thank you. So next question here, I'm going to throw 2 together. I had a question come in. Can attic sprinklers be used to protect an FM HC2 occupancy? And then a related question, can corridor sprinklers be used to protect cable tunnels?
Very good questions. So both those sprinklers, the attic sprinkler and the corridor sprinkler, have approvals from UL for light hazard occupancies. So the fact that you want to go into FM is sometimes okay. Like we've seen FM sort of say we don't have an sprinkler, so just use it. But when you talk about HC2, that ends up being really an equivalent to an ordinary hazard, and I don't see that really flying. And with the cable tunnel, I don't see that one either. Again, it's light hazard, but then it's really about having a smooth ceiling, and I can imagine the cable tunnel creating a problem. That being said, the cable tunnel intrigues me. I'm not really sure I fully understand the hazard. And if you wanted to have this conversation offline, maybe we can see about that application a little bit more and if it could be a fit.
Okay, yeah, I think I was looking at it more from just the sheer light hazard standpoint, which is why I threw those together, and you answered that very well. Regarding the window sprinklers, is there a minimum distance requirement between the window sprinkler and regular dependent sprinklers? And then second portion of the question, is the window sprinkler considered quick response?
Yes, the window sprinkler uses fast response elements and they're considered quick response. They can be used in the same compartment with quick response sprinklers, and that same thermal sensitivity exists. From a standpoint of the minimum distance from a sprinkler that would be installed, at the ceiling level, you would want to install it the cold solder distance away from that sprinkler to the ceiling. So if it's a standard spray sprinkler, it's 6 foot. And if it's extended coverage, it's probably going to be about 8 foot. So really it's about respecting those distances at the ceiling.
Okay, and then a couple more filtering in here real quick. Has Reliable been addressing sprinkler for electric vehicle parking / charging areas?
It's a very good question. No, I wouldn't say that's like actively being researched by us, but as somebody who spends time in the industry around other people and in committees and everything else, it comes up a lot, and there is discussion and I think momentum to try and solve those problems. And I think a better avenue for that right now looks to be the Fire Protection Research Foundation and some of the work that they would like to do to try and tackle it and provide guidance to NFPA to maybe put something in the standard that is applicable to a broad range of applications.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think the issue is more from the committee level rather than a manufacturer level. It's going to be some arrangement of density and most likely standard spray sprinklers. So I don't think we'd be seeing a special sprinkler for that, but more a special design requirements that come about as part of the committee process. And this is going to be an interesting one for you. I want to hear your answer. What is the difference between lithium battery sidewall and a standard sidewall?
That is a good question. First and foremost, I'd say K factor. It's an 11.2 K factor. We didn't hit on the amount of water that we're applying, but it is 60 gallons a minute. So that's something that we can deliver through that K factor with a reasonable pressure rating of approximately 28 to 30 PSI. And more importantly, how does it differ from a standard sidewall? Well, it was tested. So, that's the key. Whatever we make a sprinkler for, or however you make a sprinkler, what you test it for is what you get a listing for. We couldn't get a listing for the sprinkler for lithium-ion batteries. We did everything we could. We took the hazard all the way to exposed, expanded plastics, and then we did our own research with the lithium-ion battery to try and prove it out as a concept. And really, that's it. It was tested for it.
Yeah, I think that's the key answer right there. Is it's the testing that the sprinkler's undergone, and this entire presentation was about special sprinklers and those 6 or 7 requirements that are listed in NFPA 13 in order to list special sprinkler, and that's really what the difference is between those. That's it, Brandon. I appreciate your time, and if you want to close out, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. And if you have some questions and you need to get in touch with us, technical services, this is the way to do it. Thanks.